Victor Reyes, trembling fingers clutched the $2 million diamond ring he'd found while mopping the executive bathroom, a treasure worth more than 10 years of his janitor's salary. Standing in the gleaming corporate lobby, heart pounding and sweat beading on his forehead, he extended the priceless heirloom toward the formidable CEO as the entire building fell into stunned silence. Before we continue, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, like the video, and comment where in the world you're watching from. Let's go, Mom. I think you dropped this. The words cut through the pristine marble lobby of Ellington Tower, halting conversations mid-sentence. Victor Reyes stood in his faded blue janitor's uniform, cap clutched nervously in one hand, the other extended toward Diana Ellington, CEO of Ellington Enterprises. Between his calloused fingers glittered a diamond ring that caught the morning light streaming through the floor-to-ceiling windows, fracturing it into 1,000 dancing rainbows. Diana froze, her morning coffee halfway to her lips, briefcase clutched under one arm. The entire lobby seemed to hold its breath. Assistants paused with phones to their ears. Security guards straightened. Executives stopped their hurried march toward elevators. All eyes locked on the improbable tableau, the immigrant janitor and the billion-dollar CEO, separated by 15 feet of polished marble and an unbridgeable social chasm. "Excuse me?" Diana's voice was cool, controlled, though her eyes had widened at the sight of the ring. Victor took a step closer, his worn work boots squeaking slightly against the immaculate floor. "Your ring, Mom. I found it in the executive bathroom while cleaning last night. I remembered seeing you wear it yesterday during the board meeting when I was changing the recycling bins." The murmuring began immediately. Everyone in the company knew the story of that ring. The legendary Ellington Blue Diamond, a 12-carat flawless blue diamond set in platinum, valued at over $2 million. A family heirloom passed down through 4 generations of Ellingtons, worn by Diana's grandmother when she'd saved the company during the Depression, by her mother when she'd broken the glass ceiling in the 1980s. Diana had been photographed wearing it on the cover of Forbes just last month, and now it lay in the palm of a night shift janitor who earned less in a year than the insurance premium on the ring. Diana set her coffee down on a nearby reception desk, her composure slipping for the briefest moment. I didn't even realize it was missing." Her hand instinctively went to her bare finger, a habit from 15 years of never removing the ring except for cleaning. "I must have left it by the sink." Victor nodded, still holding the ring out like an offering. "I put it in the lost and found box and filled out the proper form. But then I saw the security notice this morning about an important missing item. I thought it might be faster if I just returned it directly." Diana approached him now, the click of her Louboutins echoing in the still hushed lobby. The crowd of employees had grown, people drifting from the cafeteria and security desk, executives pausing on their way to meeting. A circle had formed around Victor and Diana, everyone pretending not to stare while missing nothing. "You knew what this was worth," Diana said quietly when she reached him, her eyes searching his face. It wasn't a question. Victor met her gaze steadily. "Yes, Mom. I've cleaned the display case with your family history many times, and you're just returning it." A look of confusion crossed Victor's weathered face. "It's not mine," he said simply, as though that explained everything. Diana reached out slowly and took the ring, slipping it back onto her finger where it caught the light again, the tension in her shoulders visibly released. "Thank you, Mr. Reyes." "Victor Reyes, Mom." "Well, Mr. Reyes," Diana said, her businesslike demeanor returning as she straightened her blazer, "that was exceptionally honest of you. I'd like to offer you a reward, of course." She reached for her purse. Victor's face flushed, and he took a small step back, hands raised. "No, Ma'am, that's not necessary. Just doing the right thing." Diana paused, manicured fingers hovering over her purse. Something in his reaction made her tilt her head slightly, reassessing the man before her. "Surely there must be something you need." "Something I could help with." Before Victor could respond, a high voice called out from across the lobby, "Dad, I got the vending machine to work." A girl of about 9 hurried toward them, her pink backpack bouncing, waving a candy bar triumphantly. She wore a school uniform, with mismatched socks and had her dark hair in slightly crooked braids. She stopped short when she saw the crowd, suddenly shy. "Sophia," Victor said, his entire demeanor softening as he beckoned her closer. "I'm just finishing up here." Diana looked between them, noting the girl's worn shoes and the careful way Victor had mended a tear in her backpack with precise stitches. "Your daughter comes with you to work?" she asked. Victor nodded, resting a protective hand on Sophia's shoulder. "Just for the early morning shift today. A babysitter had an emergency and school doesn't start until 9. My supervisor approved it." The last part was added hastily, and Diana could see the fear flash briefly across his face. The fear of a man who couldn't afford to lose his job. "I stay super quiet," Sophia offered earnestly, looking up at Diana with solemn dark eyes. "And I help Dad refill the soap dispensers sometimes." Something shifted in Diana's expression then, a subtle change that the executives who worked with her daily would have recognized as rare and significant. The calculating business mask slipped, revealing something more genuine underneath. "Sophia," Diana said, crouching slightly to meet the girl's eyes, "your father just did something very special. He found something extremely valuable that belongs to me and returned it when he could have kept it." Sophia looked up at her father proudly. "Dad always says we might not have much, but we have our honor." A ripple of murmurs spread through the watching crowd. Diana straightened, studying Victor with new interest. Her gaze lingered on his worn uniform, the patches at the elbows, the careful way he'd polished his name badge. She noticed the calluses on his hands, the tired lines around his eyes, the lunch bag peeking from his pocket that was clearly packed with enough to share with his daughter. "Mr. Reyes," Diana said, her voice taking on the tone she used for boardroom decisions, "I'd like to speak with you in my office. Right now, if you're available." Victor glanced uncertainly at his cleaning cart parked against a nearby column, then at his daughter. "I'm on shift until noon, Mom. And Sophia, I'll have my assistant notify your supervisor." Diana cut in smoothly. "And Sophia is welcome to join us. My office has an excellent view of the harbor that I think she might enjoy." She smiled at the little girl, who brightened immediately as Diana led them toward the private executive elevator, an area Victor had only ever cleaned, never ridden in. The whispers intensified among the watching employees. Security guards exchanged glances. Administrative assistants tapped frantically on their phones, updating the company gossip channels. Executives raised eyebrows, recognizing that particular gleam in their CEO's eye, the one that appeared when she'd identified an overlooked asset. The elevator doors closed on the three of them. The powerful CEO with her recovered family treasure, the honest janitor who'd returned it, and the little girl with mismatched socks, who watched with wide eyes as her father's life began to change in ways he couldn't yet imagine. In the reflection of the polished elevator doors, Diana twisted the blue diamond ring on her finger, a plan already forming in her mind. Victor Reyes had just demonstrated a quality rarer than any diamond, and Diana Ellington had built her fortune by recognizing value where others saw none. The executive elevator moved with silent precision, nothing like the service elevator Victor used to transport cleaning supplies between floors. Sophia pressed her nose against the glass wall that looked out over the cityscape, her breath creating small clouds on the pristine surface. "Wow," she whispered, watching the ground fall away. "We're flying." Victor shifted uncomfortably, acutely aware of his work boots on the plush carpet, the faint smell of cleaning chemicals that clung to his uniform, the conspicuous yellow rubber gloves sticking out of his back pocket. He belonged in the service corridors of Ellington Tower, not riding in the CEO's private elevator to the top floor. Diana watched them both, her expression unreadable. The ring glittered on her finger as she tapped a security code into a discreet panel. "The view gets better," she said to Sophia. "Wait until you see it from my office." The elevator slowed smoothly and opened directly into a reception area, unlike anything Victor had ever seen, even during his night shifts cleaning the executive floor. Cream-colored leather seating, original artwork, and a sleek desk where a surprised assistant looked up from her computer. "Rebecca," Diana said, striding forward, "please clear my calendar until 10. And have Hector bring in a breakfast tray." She paused. "What do 9-year-olds like for breakfast, Sophia?" Sophia blinked at being addressed directly by this imposing woman. Pancakes, but I already had cereal at home. Pancakes it is. And coffee for your father and me. Diana continued toward a set of double doors without breaking stride, clearly expecting them to follow. Victor hesitated. Ms. Ellington, I appreciate the gesture, but I really should get back to work. My supervisor has already been notified. Diana finished for him, turning back. In fact, I've requested you be assigned to me for the day. Special project. Something in her tone made it clear this wasn't simply a polite offer, but a decision already made. Victor felt a familiar tightness in his chest, the sensation of events moving beyond his control. He'd experienced it many times before, when his visa application was processed, when his wife fell ill, when the hospital bills mounted, when he'd accepted this job that was beneath his qualifications but offered health insurance. He'd learned to adapt, to make the best of circumstances he couldn't change. He took Sophia's hand and followed Diana Ellington into her office. The space was magnificent. 3 glass walls offering panoramic views of the harbor, the financial district, and the mountains beyond. A massive desk of some exotic wood anchored one end, while a comfortable seating area occupied the other. Floor-to-ceiling bookshelves lined the only solid wall, filled with leather-bound volumes and carefully chosen artifacts. Sophia gasped audibly, immediately drawn to the windows. Diana smiled slightly at the girl's reaction, then gestured for Victor to sit in one of the chairs opposite her desk. "Sit down, Mr. Reyes. We have things to discuss." Victor perched on the edge of the chair, back straight, hands resting on his knees. His father's voice echoed in his memory. "Always look people in the eye. Hee-ho, rich or poor, we are all just people. You found a $2 million ring and turned it in without hesitation," Diana said, studying him with the intensity that had intimidated countless business rivals. "That's unusual." Victor met her gaze steadily. "With respect, Miss Ellington, it's not unusual where I come from. It's expected. And where is that exactly? I was born in Merida, Mexico, but my family moved to Arizona when I was 12. Diana nodded, making a small note on a pad. "And your educational background?" The question caught Victor off guard. I have a bachelor's degree in mechanical engineering from the University of Arizona and some graduate work. Before, he glanced at Sophia, who had discovered a small crystal paperweight on a side table and was watching how it scattered the morning light. "Before what, Mr. Reyes?" Victor straightened his shoulders slightly. "Before my wife got sick. Cancer. Sophia was 4. Sophia. I left my program to care for them both, and after Maria passed, I needed steady work with good health insurance more than I needed to finish my degree." Something flickered in Diana's eyes. Not pity, which Victor would have resented, but something sharper, more calculating. She tapped her pen against the notepad. "So you're telling me a mechanical engineer with graduate-level education has been cleaning my building's bathrooms for the past 5 years? Put that way, it sounded absurd. Victor felt a flush of embarrassment mixed with defiance. "I'm telling you, I do whatever it takes to provide for my daughter, Ms. Ellington. The job was available. The schedule lets me be there when Sophia gets home from school, and the health insurance is good. Pride doesn't put food on the table." The door opened before Diana could respond. A uniformed man entered with a silver tray bearing coffee, juice, and a stack of pancakes that made Sophia's eyes widen. He set it on the coffee table in the seating area and departed silently. "Let's continue our conversation more comfortably," Diana said, rising from her desk. "Sophia, those pancakes are getting cold." They relocated to the seating area, Sophia carefully balancing her plate on her knees, stealing glances at the expensive furnishings around her. Victor accepted a cup of coffee but didn't touch the pastries arranged on a silver platter. "Tell me about your current situation," Diana said, adding a precise amount of cream to her coffee. "Housing, finances, Sophia's schooling?" Victor's guard went up immediately. These were not casual questions, and despite the luxurious surroundings and offered breakfast, this was not a social visit. Diana Ellington didn't invite janitors to her office without purpose. "May I ask why you want to know, Miss Ellington?" His tone remained respectful but firm. Diana smiled slightly, as if his resistance confirmed something for her. "Direct." "Good." She set down her coffee cup. "Mr. Reyes, I'm trying to understand something. You found an item worth millions, something you could have sold for enough money to change your life completely. You could have disappeared, started over somewhere with resources most people only dream about. Instead, you returned it without hesitation. She leaned forward slightly. Either you're a saint, which, forgive me, I don't believe in, or there's something more complex happening. I'm trying to understand what kind of man you are. Victor glanced at Sophia, who was happily devouring her pancakes, oblivious to the tension in the adult conversation. I'm not complex, Ms. Ellington. I have principle, and more importantly, he nodded toward his daughter, I have someone watching everything I do, learning from my example. He met Diana's gaze directly. What would it teach her if I stole something, even something valuable, from someone wealthy? That her father is a thief? That principles only matter when they're convenient? He shook his head. Some things aren't for sale. My integrity is one of them. The room fell silent, except for the soft clink of Sophia's fork against her plate. Diana's expression had changed, the calculated assessment giving way to something more genuine, almost vulnerable. You remind me of someone, she said finally, twisting the blue diamond ring on her finger. My grandfather. He built this company from nothing during the Depression, not by cutting corners or exploiting others, but by being unfailingly honest when everyone around him was taking shortcuts. She stood abruptly and walked to the window, looking out over the city her family had helped shape. He wore this ring to his last day, said it reminded him that true value isn't in what something costs, but in what it represents. She turned back to face Victor. And I've forgotten that sometimes. Victor remained silent, sensing she wasn't finished. Mr. Reyes, I'd like to make you an offer, Diana said, returning to her seat. Not a reward for returning my property. I understand now that would offend you. Something else entirely. Sophia had finished her pancakes and was now carefully folding her napkin into increasingly complex shapes, her small fingers working with surprising precision. Victor watched her for a moment, struck as always by how much she resembled Maria, the same thoughtful furrow between her brows when she concentrated, the same quiet determination. What kind of offer? Victor asked, returning his attention to Diana. Diana Ellington leaned back in her chair, fingers steepled. The morning sun caught the blue diamond on her hand, sending fractured light dancing across the walls. Ellington Enterprises has a problem, she said. Several. Actually, our mechanical systems division is underperforming. Equipment failures, inefficient designs, quality control issues. The division head assures me everything is fine, but the numbers tell a different story. She fixed him with a penetrating gaze. I need someone who knows mechanical engineering, but isn't part of the existing hierarchy. Someone who can observe, assess, and report directly to me without political considerations. Victor stared at her. You want to hire me as what? A consultant, an advisor, reporting only to me. Diana reached for a slim folder on the coffee table and handed it to him. Your job would be to evaluate our mechanical systems division from top to bottom. Identify inefficiencies, suggest improvements, flag potential failures before they happen. Victor opened the folder. Inside was a job description, the title reading Special Technical Advisor to the CEO. Below that was a salary figure that made him blink twice to ensure he wasn't misreading it. The amount was more than 5 times what he currently earned. This is, he began, then stopped, unsure how to continue. No appropriate compensation for someone with your qualifications, Diana finished for him. The position includes comprehensive health benefits, of course, and a flexible schedule to accommodate Sophia's needs. Victor closed the folder slowly. Why? He asked simply. You don't know me? You don't know my capabilities. This seems impulsive, Diana smiled slightly. I'm known for making quick decisions, Mr. Reyes, but not careless ones. Before you arrived in my office, I had Rebecca pull your employment file. 5 years with the building management company. Not a single complaint. 3 commendations for initiative. Perfect attendance. Supervisor notes indicate you fixed several mechanical issues outside your job description, saving thousands in repair costs. She reached for her tablet and turned it toward him. While we've been talking, I've also had my team run a background check. Your academic record is impressive. Your professors at Arizona spoke highly of your potential. You were on track for a promising career before personal tragedy intervened. Victor felt a complex mixture of emotions. Discomfort at having his life investigated so thoroughly without his knowledge, a flicker of pride that his work had been noticed, and lingering suspicion about the sudden opportunity. You said several problems, he said carefully. Did what else besides the mechanical division? Diana's expression shifted slightly, something harder entering her eyes. Integrity, as you demonstrated this morning. It's a rare commodity. I suspect someone in the division is cutting corners, possibly worse. I need someone who can spot not just mechanical failures, but ethical ones. Now Victor understood. You want me to be your spy. I want you to be my eyes and ears in a division that's been operating as a black box for too long, Diana corrected smoothly. Think of it as quality assurance for both products and people. Sophia had finished her napkin folding and was now standing by the window, watching a cruise ship move slowly across the harbor far below. Victor glanced at his daughter, then back at the folder in his hands, the salary figure seeming to pulse on the page. With that money, he could move them out of their one-bedroom apartment in the crowded part of town. Sophia could have her own room. He could pay off Maria's remaining medical bills, maybe even restart his graduate studies part-time. But at what cost? Miss Ellington, Victor said, closing the folder and placing it on the table between them. I appreciate the offer, truly. But if you're hiring me because you think I'm someone who would report on my colleagues, possibly get them fired, he shook his head. The same integrity that made me return your ring would make me a disappointment in that role, rather than looking annoyed. Diana smiled, a genuine expression that transformed her face. Dean, excellent answer, Mr. Reyes. If you'd eagerly agreed to spy on your future colleagues, I'd have thanked you for your time and shown you out. Victor blinked in confusion. I don't understand. What I need isn't a spy, but someone who knows the difference between reporting genuine problems and betraying trust. Someone who won't be corrupted by a sudden increase in status or salary. She leaned forward. The integrity you showed this morning is precisely why I'm offering you this position. I don't expect you to be my informant. I expect you to be exactly who you are. She rose and walked to a credenza near her desk, returning with another folder. This is the real offer. Same title, same compensation, but with complete autonomy to improve the division as you see fit. Report problems to me, yes, but focus on solutions, not blame. Victor took the second folder with more caution than the first. The job description was similar, but subtly different, emphasizing innovation and improvement rather than investigation and reporting. I still don't understand why me, he said, looking up at her. Brian, there must be hundreds of qualified engineers who would jump at this opportunity. Diana twisted the blue diamond ring on her finger, a habit Victor was beginning to recognize. My grandfather had a theory about people. He believed that character revealed itself in moments when no one was watching, when there was opportunity without consequence. She gestured toward the ring. You passed that test in spectacular fashion, Mr. Reyes. She returned to her seat across from him. Besides, you've been cleaning this building for 5 years. You know its systems intimately, probably better than the engineers who designed them. You've seen the problems firsthand, from a perspective executives never consider. Sophia had wandered back from the window and now stood beside her father's chair, sensing the importance of the conversation. Victor placed a gentle hand on her shoulder. I would need some time to consider, he said. This is a significant change. Of course, Diana nodded. Take the weekend. The position is yours if you want it. Starting Monday, she hesitated, then added, one more thing. The offer includes relocation assistance to a company-owned apartment building closer to the office, 2-bedroom units. Good school district. Victor's breath caught. She had identified his most pressing concern without him voicing it. Thank you, he said quietly. I'll consider it carefully. Diana stood, signaling the end of the meeting. Rebecca will show you out and give you her contact information. She'll also arrange for someone to cover your duties for the remainder of today. Paid time off for you to think. As they walked toward the door, Diana stopped Victor with a light touch on his arm. Mr. Reyes, regardless of your decision, thank you for returning my ring. It means more to me than its monetary value suggests. Victor nodded. Family treasures often do. Something in Diana's expression shifted at his words, a momentary vulnerability quickly masked by her professional demeanor. She escorted them to the reception area, where Rebecca was waiting to guide them back to the elevator. As the doors closed, Sophia looked up at her father with wide eyes. Dad, is that lady giving you a new job? Victor knelt down to her level. She offered me one. I haven't decided yet if I'm going to take it. Sophia considered this with a child's directness. Would we have to move? We might. To a bigger place, where you could have your own room. Sophia's eyes lit up. Udi, with stars on the ceiling, like in the magazine. Victor smiled, his heart squeezing at how little it would take to fulfill her dreams. Maybe so, querida. The elevator descended smoothly, carrying them back down to a world that suddenly seemed full of unexpected possibilities. Victor's mind raced with calculations, considerations, and questions. By the time they reached the lobby, he had mentally drafted a list of pros and cons, potential challenges, and things he would need to verify before making his decision. But in his heart, watching Sophia's excited face as she waved goodbye to the security guards who had always been kind to them during their early mornings in the building, he already knew what his answer would be. The weekend passed in a blur of research and reflection. Victor spent hours online, reading everything he could find about Ellington Enterprises, its mechanical systems division, and Diana Ellington herself. Sophia helped by cutting out magazine articles about the company from old issues at the library, creating a colorful if somewhat chaotic collage on their kitchen table. By Sunday evening, Victor had filled a notebook with observations, questions, and preliminary ideas. The more he learned about the company's mechanical systems division, the more he understood Diana's concerns. Their equipment failure rates were significantly higher than industry standard, and customer complaints had increased by 32% in the past year alone. But it was the photos from the company's annual report that truly caught his attention. Specifically, the images of their manufacturing floor. Even in carefully staged publicity photos, Victor could spot at least 7 safety violations and numerous inefficient workflow arrangements. His fingers itched to redesign the entire layout. Sophia sat across from him at their small kitchen table, coloring a picture of what she imagined their new apartment might look like. She had added a balcony with flowers, a room filled with books, and stars on her bedroom ceiling. What do you think, Dad? She asked, pushing the drawing toward him. Victor looked up from his notes, his tired eyes softening as he took in her creation. It's beautiful, mija. Is that a telescope? Sophia nodded enthusiastically. For looking at real stars, Miss Chen says we can see Jupiter from Earth with a telescope. Victor smiled, remembering how his own father had shown him the constellations from their small yard in Merida. Some dreams passed from generation to generation, surviving all hardships. He made a mental note to research affordable telescopes. Time for bed, he said, glancing at the clock. Big day tomorrow. After tucking Sophia in, Victor sat alone in their tiny living room, Diana Ellington's job offer on the coffee table before him. The decision had been made. He would accept. But a nagging unease still tugged at him. Everything was happening so fast. A week ago, he had been invisible to someone like Diana Ellington. Now, she was offering him a position that could change his and Sophia's lives completely, all because he'd done what any decent person would do. His phone buzzed with a text from Constanza, their elderly neighbor who watched Sophia after school. Good luck tomorrow, Victor. Sophia told me everything. We will miss you both when you move, but my heart is happy for you. You deserve this. The simple message dissolved the last of his doubts. If he was honest with himself, his hesitation wasn't about the job itself. It was the feeling that he didn't deserve such an opportunity, that somehow this was all too good to be true, that it would be snatched away just as he began to hope. But he needed to be brave for Sophia, for himself, and for the memory of Maria, who had always believed he was capable of more than he allowed himself to dream. Victor texted back his thanks, then sent a message to Rebecca, Diana's assistant, confirming his acceptance of the position. The response came almost immediately. Ms. Ellington will be pleased. 9 a.m. tomorrow, 41st floor. HR will have everything ready. Monday morning arrived with a crisp fall breeze that carried the scent of possibility. Victor dressed in his best clothes, dark slacks, a blue button-down shirt that Maria had given him years ago, and a tie he hadn't worn since her funeral. He helped Sophia into her school uniform, packed her lunch, and together they left their apartment earlier than usual. When they arrived at Ellington Tower, the security guards greeted them differently. Word had spread throughout the building about Victor's honesty and Diana's offer. "Big day, Mr. Reyes," said Marcus, the head of security, shaking Victor's hand formally instead of the casual nod they usually exchange. "Congratulations." "Thank you," Victor replied, still uncomfortable with the attention. "But I'm still the same person I was last week." Marcus smiled knowingly. "That's exactly why Ms. Ellington hired you." After dropping Sophia at her school with promises to tell her everything that evening, Victor returned to the tower and took the main elevator to the 41st floor, not the executive suite where Diana's office was located, but the human resources department. Rebecca was waiting for him when he stepped off the elevator. "Good morning, Mr. Reyes. Everything's prepared." She led him through a maze of cubicles to a conference room where 3 people waited. Diana Ellington herself, a stern-looking older woman introduced as Vera from Human Resources, and a thin man with wire-rimmed glasses named Harold Jenkins, the current head of the Mechanical Systems Division. Victor's stomach tightened at the unexpected presence of his new supervisor. He had assumed his onboarding would be separate from meeting the division leadership. Diana stood as he entered. "Mr. Reyes, welcome. I trust you had enough time to consider our offer." "Yes, Miss Ellington. Thank you for the opportunity." Victor shook her hand, noticing the blue diamond ring catching the light. "Excellent." Diana gestured for him to sit. "I've asked Harold to join us because I believe in transparency." "Harold, this is Victor Reyes, our new special technical advisor." Harold's smile didn't reach his eyes. "Charmed," he said, his voice clipped. "Diana tells me you have quite the background story. Janitor to executive advisor overnight, like a modern fairy tale." The condescension in his tone was unmistakable. Victor maintained his composure, meeting Harold's gaze directly. "I was an engineer before I was a janitor, Mr. Jenkins, and I've spent 5 years learning this building's systems from the inside out." "Yes? Well," Harold adjusted his glasses, "there's quite a difference between changing air filters and understanding the complexities of our product development cycle." Diana cut in before Victor could respond. "That's precisely why Victor's perspective will be valuable, Harold. He sees things from an angle the rest of us don't." Vera cleared her throat and pushed a thick folder across the table to Victor. "Your employment contract, benefits information, company policies, and security clearance documents. Please review and sign where indicated." The next hour was consumed with paperwork and formalities. Victor signed where directed, provided identification documents, and received his new security badge. No longer the service staff designation he'd worn for years, but an executive access card that would open doors throughout the building. As they concluded, Diana stood. "Harold will show you to your new office and introduce you to the team." Her tone made it clear this wasn't optional for either of them. "I expect a preliminary assessment on my desk by Friday, Victor and Harold. I want you to ensure Victor has access to everything he needs." Harold's smile tightened further. "Of course, Diana." After Diana and Vera departed, Harold's facade dropped. "Let me be clear, Reyes," he said, gathering his papers. "I don't know what kind of game you're playing or how you managed to charm Diana, but my division runs like clockwork. We don't need an outsider poking around, especially someone with no relevant recent experience." Victor had expected resistance, but the open hostility surprised him. "I'm not here to cause problems, Mr. Jenkins. I'm here to help solve them." "There are no problems to solve," Harold snapped, standing abruptly. "Come along. I'll show you your office and introduce you to the team. The sooner they meet you, the sooner they'll understand this is just another of Diana's impulsive projects that will be forgotten in a month. As they walked through the mechanical division's floor, Victor observed everything with an engineer's eye. The workspace was modern, but inefficiently arranged. Staff members looked up as they passed, curiosity and confusion evident on their faces. Victor noted their expressions, the state of their workstations, the diagrams and models displayed on screens. Harold stopped at a small office near the back of the floor, far from both the engineering team and the executive area. "Here we are. Your kingdom awaits, Your Majesty." The office was bare except for a desk, chair, computer, and empty bookshelf. The one window looked out at the brick wall of the adjacent building. The message was clear. Harold was isolating him, minimizing his presence. "Thank you," Victor said simply, refusing to engage with the obvious slight. "When can I meet the team?" Harold checked his watch with exaggerated precision. "I'll gather everyone in the conference room in an hour. Until then, why don't you familiarize yourself with your impressive new surroundings?" After Harold left, closing the door with unnecessary force, Victor set his bag down on the empty desk and took a deep breath. The hostility wasn't unexpected, but its intensity suggested he had stumbled into something more significant than inefficiency or quality control issues. He powered on the computer and found it had only the most basic access to company systems, another attempt to limit his effectiveness. Victor smiled slightly as he logged in. If Harold Jenkins thought bureaucratic obstacles and cold shoulders would deter him, he clearly didn't understand what Victor had already overcome in his life. He pulled out his notebook and made his first official note as Special Technical Advisor. Division Head Defensive and Obstructive, access intentionally limited, priority, identify allies, and establish independent information channels. The game had begun. The hour passed quickly as Victor systematically documented what little he could access from his computer. Even with the restricted permissions, he found valuable information in the company's public-facing materials and internal newsletters. He created a preliminary organizational chart of the division, noting names, positions, and reporting structures. At precisely 10 o'clock, his office phone rang. "It's conference room," Harold's voice stated flatly before hanging up. Victor straightened his tie, grabbed his notebook, and made his way through the maze of cubicles to the large glass-walled conference room at the center of the floor. Inside, about 20 people were gathered. Engineers, designers, project managers, and support staff, according to Victor's hasty assessment of their attire and demeanor. Harold stood at the head of the table, his posture rigid. "Everyone, this is Victor Reyes," he announced as Victor entered. "Ms. Ellington has appointed him as a special technical advisor to our division." The air quotes were audible in his tone. "Mr. Reyes was previously employed in our building's maintenance department, but has apparently impressed Ms. Ellington with his unique perspective." The room filled with uncomfortable silence as all eyes turned to Victor. He could read the unspoken questions, the skepticism, and in a few cases, outright hostility. This introduction was deliberately designed to undermine him. Victor took a deep breath and stepped forward. "Thank you, Mr. Jenkins. Good morning, everyone. It's true that until recently, I worked in maintenance. Before that, I was a mechanical engineering student at the University of Arizona." He paused, letting that sink in. "For the past 5 years, I've had the opportunity to observe firsthand how the systems in this building function, or sometimes don't function, under real-world conditions." A few people shifted in their seats, their expressions moving from dismissal to mild curiosity. "But I'm not here to tell any of you how to do your job," Victor continued. "You're the experts in your fields. I'm here to offer a different perspective, to bridge the gap between design theory and practical application. My goal is to help this division create systems that not only look good on paper, but work flawlessly in the field." A woman in the back raised her hand. "What exactly will you be doing? Reporting on us to Ms. Ellington?" Victor met her gaze directly. "I'll be assessing our division's processes and products, identifying areas for improvement, and yes, reporting my findings to Ms. Ellington. But my purpose isn't to assign blame, it's to find solution." "And what qualifies you for this role?" asked a middle-aged man with a skeptical frown. No offense, But cleaning equipment isn't the same as designing it. Victor nodded, acknowledging the valid question. 5 years maintaining the systems you design has given me insights into how they perform after installation. I fixed the same components repeatedly, identified failure patterns, and adapted systems to real-world constraints that weren't considered in the original designs. He reached into his bag and pulled out a folded paper, placing it on the conference table. For instance, this is a modification I developed for the air handling units on floors 12 through 18. The original design worked perfectly in theory, but failed consistently in practice because the specified clearance didn't account for the building's actual structural supports. My solution reduced service calls by 84% over the past 3 years. Several engineers leaned forward to examine the paper. One of them, a younger woman with bright red hair pulled into a practical ponytail, picked it up with evident interest. "This is actually quite elegant," she said, looking up at Victor with newfound respect. "I'm Mei Lin, lead systems engineer. Did you implement this yourself?" Victor nodded. "With permission from building maintenance. I have similar modifications for 15 other systems throughout the tower." Harold cleared his throat loudly. "Yes. Well, fascinating as this impromptu show-and-tell session is, we all have actual work to do. Mr. Reyes, I suggest you spend today familiarizing yourself with our formal procedures and protocols. Everyone else, back to your station." The meeting disbanded with murmurs and curious glances. As people filed out, Mei Lin approached Victor. "That modification is really impressive. The structural interference issue has been a recurring problem in several of our installations. I'd be happy to show you the others," Victor offered. "I'd like that," she replied with a genuine smile. "Some of us grab lunch at the deli across the street. You should join us today. Around 12:30, Victor thanked her, aware of Harold watching their interaction with narrow eyes. As Mei Lin left, Harold approached. "Making friends already," he observed coldly. "Don't get too comfortable, Reyes. Diana may be impressed by your janitor to genius fairy tale, but I've been running this division for 15 years. People come and go, but I remain." Victor regarded him steadily. "Mr. Jenkins, I have no intention of threatening your position. If the division improves, we all benefit, including you." Harold's laugh was short and humorless. "Such naivety. You think this is about making better products? This is about politics, budgets, and power. Diana's playing some game with you as her pawn." He leaned closer. "When she's finished with whatever point she's trying to make, you'll be back cleaning toilets, if you're lucky enough to keep that job." Before Victor could respond, Harold turned and strode away, leaving Victor alone in the conference room. The encounter confirmed what he had already suspected. There was more happening in this division than simple inefficiency. The rest of the morning passed in a bureaucratic maze. Victor received a stack of procedure manual, most of which seemed designed to slow innovation rather than facilitate it. He dutifully reviewed them, making notes on contradictions and unnecessary complications. At 12:25, he made his way to the building's lobby. Outside, the crisp autumn air was a welcome relief after the stuffy confines of his back corner office. He spotted Mei Lin and 3 others from the division standing near the deli entrance. "Victor, glad you could make it," Mei called, waving him over. "This is Dev from software integration, Zoe from design, and Patrick from testing." The group welcomed him with varying degrees of warmth as they entered the deli and found a table in the corner. "So," Dev said once they had ordered, leaning forward with undisguised curiosity, "what's the real story? How does a janitor end up as Diana Ellington's special advisor?" Victor hesitated, unsure how much had already spread through the office grapevine. "I found something valuable that belonged to Miss Ellington and returned it. She was appreciative." "He's being modest," Zoe interjected. "A word is, he found her grandmother's blue diamond ring, worth millions, and returned it without a second thought. When most people would have headed straight to Mexico with their newfound fortune." Victor winced at the casual stereotype. "I'm from Arizona, actually, though my family is originally from Mexico." Zoe had the grace to look embarrassed. "Sorry, I didn't mean—" "It's fine," Victor assured her, though it wasn't really. "But yes, I returned Ms. Ellington's ring. It was the right thing to do." Patrick Nash, who had been quietly assessing Victor, finally spoke. "And now you're here to fix our division. What exactly did Diana tell you was wrong with us?" The question was a trap. Answer one way and he'd be seen as Diana's spy. Answer another and he'd appear clueless. Victor chose honesty. "She believes there are inefficiencies and quality control issues. Customer complaints have increased and failure rates are above industry standard." He paused, then added, "But she also values my outsider perspective. Sometimes it takes fresh eyes to see old problems." The table fell silent as his lunch companions exchanged glances. "Look," May said finally, "Harold's been telling us everything's fine for months, but we all know it isn't. Projects get approved and then mysteriously scaled back. Designs get altered after final testing. Quality materials get substituted with cheaper alternatives." Dev nodded, "And anyone who asks too many questions finds themselves reassigned or pushed out. We want to do good work," Patrick added. "But something's rotten in the state of Denmark, if you catch my drift." Victor absorbed this information, careful to keep his expression neutral. "I'm here to help, not to get anyone in trouble. But I need to understand what's really happening." Zoe glanced around nervously. "Harold has ears everywhere. We shouldn't say more here. But we can show you," May offered, "if you're serious about fixing things." Victor looked at each of them in turn, recognizing the risk they were taking by speaking to him. "I am, and I appreciate your candor." The conversation shifted to safer topics for the remainder of lunch, but Victor had made his first allies. As they walked back to the tower, May fell into step beside him. "Check your email when you get back," she said quietly. "I'm sending you some files, material specifications for the Atlanta project. Compare the submitted designs with what was actually installed. That should give you somewhere to start." Victor thanked her as they re-entered the building, aware that they were being watched by the security cameras in the lobby, and possibly by eyes more directly connected to Harold Jenkins. The game was more complex than he had initially realized, the stakes higher. But for the first time since accepting the position, Victor felt he might actually be able to make a difference. When Victor returned to his office, he found the door slightly ajar. He paused, certain he had closed it before leaving for lunch. Cautiously, he pushed it open to find a young man in an IT uniform disconnecting something from his computer. "Can I help you?" Victor asked, his voice carefully neutral. The technician jumped slightly. "Oh, Mr. Reyes. I was just setting up your system access. Mr. Jenkins said you needed the standard new employee configuration." He gestured to the computer. "All done now." Victor nodded, noting that the man avoided eye contact. "Thank you. And your name is?" "Carlos Vega, IT support." He gathered his tools quickly. "If you need anything else, just submit a ticket through the system." After Carlos left, Victor examined his computer carefully. The standard configuration appeared to have fewer access permissions than before. He smiled grimly, unsurprised. Harold was making his first countermove. Victor checked his email and found May's message waiting, innocuously titled, "Welcome Materials." The attached files were labeled as standard specifications, but when he opened them, he understood immediately what she wanted him to see. The original designs for the Atlanta project, a massive HVAC system for a new hospital, called for high-grade components with specific safety tolerances. But the installation documents showed substitutions throughout: cheaper materials, simplified designs, reduced redundancies. Most concerning were changes to the emergency backup systems, which had been dramatically scaled back from the original specifications. These weren't minor cost-cutting measures. They were potentially dangerous compromises that could affect patient safety in a hospital setting. Victor was still examining the documents when his phone rang. It was Rebecca, Diana's assistant. "Mr. Reyes, Ms. Ellington would like an update on your progress. Can you come to her office at 3 p.m? Victor glanced at his watch, barely 4 hours into his new position. And already the CEO wanted a report. "Of course, I'll be there." He spent the next hour organizing his findings and preparing notes. At 2:45, he headed to the executive floor, aware of the curious glances that followed him through the division. Diana's office was as imposing as he remembered. She sat behind her massive desk, the blue diamond glinting on her hand as she gestured for him to take a seat. "You've had an interesting first day, I imagine," she said, studying him with those penetrating eyes. "Enlightening," Victor agreed carefully. "Harold called me after your introduction to the team. He seems to think you're disrupting his division. Victor considered his response. Mr. Jenkins appears uncomfortable with my presence. That's not unexpected in this situation. Diana leaned back in her chair. Tell me what you've found so far. No politics. Just facts. Victor opened his notebook. The division is divided, not just organizationally, but in morale and purpose. Some staff members are frustrated and concerned about quality control issues. Others seem invested in maintaining the status quo. He paused. I've also identified potentially serious problems with the Atlanta hospital project. Diana's expression remained neutral, but her eyes sharpened. Would explain. Victor outlined what he had discovered in May's files, the substitutions, the compromised safety systems, the discrepancies between design and implementation. As he spoke, Diana's expression grew increasingly grave. These changes could put lives at risk in a hospital setting, he concluded, and they appear to have been made after final approval, without proper documentation or sign-off. Diana was silent for a long moment. This is exactly what I feared, she finally said. But suspecting problems and having evidence are different matters. She fixed him with an intense gaze. Who showed you these files? Victor hesitated. I'd prefer not to say at this point. People are already wary of me as your spy. To his surprise, Diana nodded. Fair enough, but I need more than this to act. I need a comprehensive understanding of what's happening in that division and solid evidence of who's responsible. That will take time, Victor warned, and resources I don't currently have. Mr. Jenkins has already restricted my system access. Diana's mouth tightened. I expected as much. She pressed a button on her desk. Rebecca, please send in Patrick from IT. A different technician than the one who had visited Victor's office appeared moments later. Diana gave him precise instructions, and within 15 minutes, Victor had a new laptop with full administrative access to the company's systems, bypassing the division's normal security protocols. This stays between us, Diana told him as Patrick left. Use it wisely. I don't want a witch hunt. I want facts. Victor nodded, understanding the responsibility she was placing on him. What's the timeline? The Atlanta project is scheduled for final delivery in 3 weeks. If there are serious safety compromises, as you suggest, we need to address them before then. Lives could depend on it. She fixed him with a stern look. But proceed carefully. If Harold or others are deliberately cutting corners for profit, they won't appreciate your interference. The warning was clear. This wasn't just about efficiency anymore. It was potentially criminal negligence, and people who would risk lives for profit wouldn't hesitate to protect themselves. I understand, Victor said quietly. As he stood to leave, Diana stopped him with a question. How's Sophia adjusting to the idea of your new position? The personal question caught him off guard. She's excited, especially about the prospect of having her own room. Diana smiled slightly. Rebecca has arranged for you to see the apartment tomorrow after work. It's in the Madison Heights complex, one of our corporate properties. 2 bedrooms, good security, excellent school district. Thank you, Victor said, touched by the thoughtfulness. That's very generous. It's practical, Diana countered, though her expression remained softer than her tone. I need you focused on this investigation, not worried about housing logistics. Victor returned to his office with the secured laptop hidden in his bag, his mind racing with both the opportunity and danger Diana had just outlined. He was no longer simply an advisor. He was effectively an undercover investigator in a potentially criminal situation. He had just settled back at his desk when a soft knock came at his door. Malin entered, closing the door behind her. Did you look at those files? She asked without preamble, her voice low. I did, Victor confirmed, and I've already discussed them with Ms. Ellington. May's eyes widened in alarm. You told her I gave them to you. No, Victor assured her quickly. Your name never came up, but May, this is serious, far beyond efficiency issues. Those modifications to the hospital system could put patients at risk. She sank into the chair across from his desk. I know. That's why I showed you. We've been trying to raise red flags for months, but Harold blocks every attempt. Reports get buried, Concerns get dismissed. Whistleblowers get reassigned or fired. Who's behind the changes? Harold himself. May shook her head. It's more complicated. Harold approves everything, but the substitutions come from purchasing, specifically from a vendor called Nexus Systems. They consistently underbid competitors, then deliver substandard components. Victor made a note of the name, and no one's questioned this pattern. Patrick in testing tried. He was removed from the Atlanta project the next day. May leaned forward. There's more. Nexus isn't just any vendor. It's owned by Westlake Holding, which is run by Harold's brother-in-law. Victor's pen still. That's a clear conflict of interest. One that's carefully obscured through shell companies and subsidiaries. It took Dev weeks of digging to make the connection. She glanced nervously at the door. Victor, we're putting our careers on the line by telling you this. If Harold discovers we've been helping you, he won't, Victor promised. But I need to know. How deep does this go? How many people in the division are involved? Mostly just Harold and his inner circle, maybe 5 people total. The rest of us either don't know or are too afraid to speak up. She stood to leave. Be careful who you trust. Harold's had 3 years to build his network. After May left, Victor sat back, absorbing the magnitude of what he'd discovered. This wasn't just about efficiency or even quality control. It was systematic fraud and endangerment. And he, a former janitor with no investigative experience, was now at the center of exposing it. He thought of Sophia, of the bright future suddenly within reach. Then he thought of the patients who would rely on those compromised systems in the Atlanta hospital. The path forward was clear, but fraught with risk. Victor opened the secure laptop and began to work. The next 3 days passed in a carefully orchestrated dance of investigation and pretense. By day, Victor maintained the appearance of a bemused former janitor learning the ropes of his new position. He attended meetings, reviewed procedures, and gradually built relationships with various team members. By night, after tucking Sophia into bed in their small apartment, he worked on the secure laptop, methodically building a case against Harold Jenkins and his network. The Madison Heights apartment had exceeded their expectations. The 2-bedroom unit featured gleaming hardwood floors, large windows with a view of the city park, and a modern kitchen that made Sophia gasp with delight. The building had a doorman, a small playground, and most importantly, was within walking distance of Sophia's school. They were scheduled to move that weekend. Wednesday afternoon found Victor in a project review meeting, quietly observing as Harold led the team through updates on various initiatives. The Atlanta hospital project was notably absent from the agenda. What about Atlanta? Victor finally asked during a lull. Isn't that our highest priority project right now? Harold's smile tightened. Atlanta is on track. We've streamlined the design to meet the client's budget constraints while maintaining our quality standards. Streamlined how? Exactly, Victor pressed, ignoring the warning glances from several team members. Technical adjustments that wouldn't interest someone of your background, Harold replied dismissively. Rest assured, everything is proceeding according to plan. Victor made a note in his book. I'd like to review those adjustments. As Ms. Ellington's advisor, I should understand all major projects. The room fell silent. Harold's face flushed slightly. Of course, he said after a moment. I'll have someone prepare a simplified overview for you. The complete technical specifications would be more helpful. Victor countered politely. I do have an engineering background, after all. Harold's eyes narrowed, but before he could respond, his phone buzzed. He glanced at it, then abruptly stood. Meeting adjourned. I need to take this call. As people filed out, Dev caught Victor's eye and made a subtle gesture toward the break room. Victor followed, finding Dev pretending to make coffee while May and Zoe waited by the window. That was bold, May whispered as Victor approached. Harold looked ready to explode. He's heading to the executive floor right now, Dev added. Probably complaining to Diana about you. Victor nodded, unsurprised. Good. Let him dig his own hole deeper. Zoe glanced nervously at the door. We've been digging too. Patrick found something in the testing logs for Atlanta. Multiple system failures during preliminary trials, all marked as resolved without explanation. And I tracked the paper trail on those Nexus components. Dev added. They're being manufactured in an unregulated factory overseas, not in the certified facility claimed in their documentation. Victor absorbed this information, adding it to his growing mental map of the fraud. I need copies of those records. Already on your secure drive, May confirmed. But Victor, you should know, Harold's inner circle is getting suspicious. They've started meeting behind closed doors. And Carlos from IT told me they asked him to monitor your computer activity. Let them, Victor said calmly. They won't find anything on the company system. Just be careful, Zoe warned. This isn't just about jobs anymore. The Atlanta system could fail catastrophically if it's installed as currently designed. We're talking about a hospital with critical care patients. The weight of responsibility pressed heavily on Victor's shoulders as he returned to his office. On his desk, he found a note from Rebecca requesting his presence in Diana's office immediately. He found Diana standing at her window, gazing out at the city skyline. She turned as he entered, her expression unreadable. Harold Jenkins was just here, she said without preamble. He seems to think you're disrupting his division and undermining his authority. I asked about the Atlanta project, Victor explained. He wasn't pleased. Diana's lips curved in a slight smile. So I gathered. He suggested I reconsider your position. Said you lack the necessary expertise and are creating a hostile work environment. Victor remained calm. And what did you tell him? That I have complete confidence in my advisor. She gestured for him to sit. But we need to discuss your progress. Friday's report deadline is approaching, and the Atlanta delivery is only 18 days away. Victor took a seat, choosing his words carefully. I've confirmed your suspicions. The division is systematically compromising quality and safety for profit. Specifically, Harold has established a procurement arrangement with a vendor called Nexus Systems, which is owned through shell companies by his brother-in-law. Diana's expression darkened. You have proof, Victor nodded. Substantial documentation, including falsified testing records, unauthorized design modifications, and the financial connections between Harold and Nexus. Most concerning are the changes to the Atlanta hospital project, which creates serious safety risks. How serious? Potential complete system failure during power outages in a hospital. That could be catastrophic. Victor leaned forward. Miss Ellington, this goes beyond corporate malfeasance. It's criminal negligence. Diana was silent for a long moment, twisting the blue diamond ring on her finger, that nervous habit Victor had noticed before. My grandfather built this company on integrity, she finally said, her voice unusually soft. He used to say that profit without principle is just theft with better marketing. Her eyes met Victor's. I need everything you found, all of it, by tomorrow morning. Not Friday. I'm meeting with our legal team to discuss next steps. Victor hesitated. The people who've helped me, May, Dev, Zoe, and others, they've put themselves at risk. I need assurance they'll be protected. They will be, Diana promised. Whistleblower protections, full immunity, and my personal guarantee of job security. Victor nodded, satisfied. Then you'll have everything by morning. As he turned to leave, Diana called after him. Victor, be careful tonight. If Harold suspects what's coming, he might take desperate measures to protect himself. The warning followed Victor like a shadow as he returned to his office. He spent the remainder of the afternoon compiling his evidence, carefully documenting each instance of fraud and each safety compromise. At 5 o'clock, he called Mrs. Henderson to check on Sophia, who was staying late at their neighbor's apartment so Victor could finish his work. She's fine, dear, the elderly woman assured him. We're making cookies and practicing her spelling. Take all the time you need. By 7, the office had emptied. Victor was alone on the floor, the quiet broken only by the soft hum of the air conditioning and the tap of his keyboard as he finalized his report. The evidence was damning, a systematic pattern of fraud that had endangered lives and defrauded clients of millions. He was so engrossed in his work that he didn't hear the door open. The first indication that he wasn't alone was a shadow falling across his desk. Victor looked up to find Harold Jenkins standing in his doorway, accompanied by 2 men he recognized as part of Harold's Harold's inner circle, Robert from purchasing and Alan from project management. "They're working late, Reyes." Harold's voice was unnaturally calm. "Dedication is admirable, but perhaps misplaced in your case." Victor closed his laptop casually, though his heart rate had accelerated, just trying to get up to speed on the division's projects. Harold stepped into the office, followed by his associates. The small space suddenly felt claustrophobic. A curious thing happened today. Our IT department flagged some unusual system access patterns. Someone has been accessing secure files, design specifications, financial records, vendor contracts, all without proper authorization. Sounds like a security concern, Victor replied evenly. "Have you reported it to Ms. Ellington?" Harold's smile was cold. "I thought I'd investigate personally first." Imagine my surprise when the access trail led here, to the former janitor playing at being an executive. Victor remained seated, keeping the desk between them. "If you have concerns about my work, Mr. Jenkins, I suggest you take them up with Ms. Ellington." "Oh, I intend to." Harold placed his hands on Victor's desk, leaning forward. "But first, I think we should discuss what you've been looking into and who's been helping you." The threat was unmistakable. Victor glanced at the two men flanking Harold, noting their hostile stances. This wasn't a confrontation. It was an intimidation tactic. "I'm just doing the job Miss Ellington hired me to do," Victor said calmly. "Now, if you'll excuse me, I need to get home to my daughter." He stood and reached for his bag, but Robert stepped forward, blocking his path. "We're not finished here, Reyes." Victor's mind raced, assessing options. The floor was empty. Security was minimal after hours. If things escalated, he would be at a significant disadvantage. Harold straightened, adjusting his glasses. "Let's be direct. We know you've been gathering information about Atlanta and other projects. Whatever you think you've found, I assure you it's a misunderstanding based on your limited technical knowledge. 3 failed safety tests on the Atlanta backup systems doesn't seem like a misunderstanding," Victor replied, deciding to show his hand. "Neither does sourcing critical components from an uncertified factory owned by your brother-in-law's company." Harold's face drained of color. "And you have no idea what you're talking about." "I think I do." Victor met his gaze steadily. "And so will Ms. Ellington when she sees my report tomorrow morning." For a moment, the room was silent. Then Harold's composure cracked. "You self-righteous janitor," he hissed. "You think you can walk in here and destroy what I've built? Do you have any idea what's at stake?" "Lives," Victor answered simply. "And the lives of patients who would depend on systems you've compromised." Harold laughed bitterly. "Spare me the moral high ground. This is business, margins, efficiencies, profit. The system works fine. It's just not gold-plated like those self-important engineers want." "The system failed 3 consecutive safety tests," Victor countered. "That's not about gold-plating. It's about basic functionality during emergencies." Harold's expression hardened. "Robert, Alan, secure his computer and files. We need to see exactly what he's been compiling." As the two men moved toward him, Victor gripped his bag tighter, the secure laptop inside suddenly feeling like a ticking bomb. "That would be theft of company property," he warned. "And obstruction of an official company investigation." "An investigation?" Harold scoffed. "You're a janitor who got lucky. Tomorrow, you'll be unemployed again, if you're lucky." Victor stood his ground, though adrenaline was now coursing through his system. The situation was deteriorating rapidly, and he needed an exit strategy. Just as Robert reached for Victor's bag, the office door swung open fully. Everyone turned to find Diana Ellington standing in the doorway, her expression glacial. "What exactly is happening here?" she asked, her voice cutting through the tension like a blade of ice. The atmosphere in the small office crystallized into sudden, tense silence. Harold recovered first, his expression shifting from threatening to ingratiating in an instant. "Diana, we were just having a discussion with Mr. Reyes about some concerns regarding his unorthodox methods of gathering information." His voice oozed professional concern. "He's been accessing restricted files without proper authorization. As division head, I felt it was my responsibility to address the situation personally." Diana stepped fully into the office, her presence somehow making the small space even more claustrophobic. Her gaze swept over the scene, Harold leaning across the desk, desk, Robert and Alan positioned to block Victor's exit, Victor clutching his bag protectively. "Is that so?" Her voice was dangerously calm. "Funny. I don't recall Mr. Reyes requiring authorization to access files I specifically instructed him to review." Harold blinked rapidly. "I wasn't informed of any special permissions. You weren't meant to be." Diana cut him off. "That was rather the point." She turned to Robert and Alan. "Gentlemen, I suggest you return to your offices and collect your personal belongings. Security will be up shortly to escort you out." The two men exchanged alarmed glances. "Miss Ellington," Alan began, "there's been a misunderstanding." "The only misunderstanding," Diana interrupted, "is your belief that intimidating my advisor would somehow benefit your situation. It has, in fact, made it considerably worse." She stepped aside, revealing two security guards waiting in the hallway. "Please go with these gentlemen. Your building access has been revoked, effective immediately. Human Resources will contact you tomorrow regarding next steps." As Robert and Alan were led away, Harold's facade crumbled, his face flushed with anger and fear. "This is absurd. You can't possibly believe whatever fabrications this janitor has fed you." "A former janitor," Diana corrected mildly. "Current advisor who has uncovered what appears to be systematic fraud, safety violations, and embezzlement in your division." She turned to Victor. "Mr. Reyes, are you all right?" Victor nodded, his pulse still racing from the confrontation. "Yes, ma'am." "Good. Is your report complete?" "Nearly. I was finalizing it when I was interrupted." Diana nodded briskly. "Oh, then let's continue this conversation in my office, where we won't be disturbed." She fixed Harold with an icy stare. "You too, Mr. Jenkins. We have much to discuss." The walk to Diana's office was silent and tense. Harold walked ahead, his back rigid with barely contained fury. Victor followed, still clutching his bag with the secure laptop. Diana brought up the rear, her heels clicking a precise rhythm on the polished floor. When they reached the executive suite, Rebecca was still at her desk despite the late hour. She looked up with concern as they entered, her eyes widening at the obvious tension. "Rebecca, please call James Patterson in legal and tell him I need him here immediately," Diana instructed. "Then contact Marcus in security and have him meet us here as well." Rebecca nodded and reached for her phone as Diana ushered Victor and Harold into her office. Once inside, Diana gestured to the seating area. "Sit down, both of you." Harold remained standing. "Diana, this is ridiculous. Whatever this man has told you, sit down." The command in her voice was unmistakable. Harold reluctantly lowered himself into a chair, as far from Victor as possible. Diana remained standing, a power move that Victor recognized from his years observing executive dynamics from the periphery of the custodial staff. Harold, I've known you for 15 years. She began, her voice controlled. "You've run the mechanical systems division efficiently, or so I believed. I trusted you, which is why the evidence Mr. Reyes has uncovered is particularly disappointing." "What evidence?" Harold demanded, his composure slipping. "Some misinterpreted technical specifications, out-of-context emails. He doesn't have the expertise to understand our operations." "How about falsified safety reports for the Atlanta hospital project?" Diana countered. "Or the rather curious financial relationship between Ellington Enterprises and Nexus Systems, a company owned through a series of shell corporations by your brother-in-law?" Harold paled. That's a coincidence. Nexus won those contracts through competitive bidding that you oversaw," Diana noted, "with technical requirements that mysteriously matched Nexus's capabilities perfectly. And then, even more curiously, the components actually delivered failed to meet even those specifications." Harold's eyes darted between Diana and Victor. "This is absurd. You're going to take the word of a janitor over a division head with 15 years of experience." "I'm taking the word of documented evidence," Diana replied evenly. "Evidence that was mysteriously buried until Mr. Reyes began his investigation." She turned to Victor. "Show me what you found." Victor opened his laptop and pulled up his report. For the next 20 minutes, He walked Diana through the evidence, the pattern of substitutions, the failed safety tests, the financial connections between Harold and Nexus Systems, the potential risks to the Atlanta hospital and other clients. As he spoke, Harold's expression cycled through shock, anger, and finally a cold calculation. When Victor finished, Harold leaned forward. Fine, there were some procedural shortcuts, cost-saving measures that perhaps pushed the boundaries of our standard practices. His tone became conciliatory. But Diana, this is how business works in the real world. Margins are tight. Clients demand lower costs. Sometimes compromises are necessary. Diana's expression was stone. Compromises that endanger lives, that defraud our clients, that line your family's pockets at the expense of this company's reputation. No one has been harmed, Harold protested. These are theoretical risks, not actual failures. Only because these systems haven't been fully deployed yet, Victor interjected. The Atlanta hospital would have patients depending on life support systems backed by compromised emergency power. That's not theoretical. It's playing Russian roulette with people's lives. A knock at the door interrupted them. Marcus, the head of security, entered with James Patterson, a grave-looking man in his 60s who Victor recognized as the company's chief legal counsel. Diana nodded to them. Gentlemen, thank you for coming. We have a situation that requires immediate attention. She outlined the findings briefly. James Patterson's expression grew increasingly serious as she spoke, while Marcus took notes. Given the evidence, Diana concluded, I'm terminating Harold Jenkins effective immediately, along with Robert Chen and Alan Michaels, who were directly involved in the fraud. Mr. Patterson, I need you to assess our legal exposure and remediation options, particularly for the Atlanta project. Marcus, please escort Mr. Jenkins from the building after he surrenders his credentials and company devices. Harold surged to his feet. You can't do this. I built that division. Without me, the Atlanta project will collapse, and you'll be liable for the delays. Without you, Diana countered, we can address the safety issues before they become catastrophic failures. The Atlanta project will be delayed. Yes, but that's preferable to risking lives with compromised systems. Harold turned to Victor, his face contorted with rage. This is all because of you. The noble janitor playing hero. His voice dropped to a venomous hiss. You think you've won? You have no idea what you've stepped into. I have friends in this industry. You'll never work as an engineer again. And that precious daughter of yours, that's enough. Diana's voice cracked like a whip. Marcus, remove Mr. Jenkins immediately and note that last comment as a threat against Mr. Reyes and his child. We'll be adding a restraining order to the termination proceedings. Marcus stepped forward, his imposing presence leaving no room for further resistance. Your badge and phone, Mr. Jenkins. For a moment, Harold looked as though he might refuse. Then, with shaking hands, he removed his executive ID badge and company phone, slapping them onto Diana's desk. You'll regret this, he said, his voice trembling with fury. All of you. The only regret, Diana replied coldly, is that I didn't discover your fraud sooner. Marcus, please ensure Mr. Jenkins is escorted not just from the building, but from the property entirely. After Harold was led away, the tension in the room eased slightly. James Patterson turned to Victor, extending his hand. Mr. Reyes, I'm impressed with your thoroughness. This evidence will be essential as we move forward. He glanced at Diana. We'll need to notify the Atlanta client immediately, and possibly regulatory authorities. Diana nodded. First thing tomorrow. Tonight, we need to secure the division's systems and file to prevent any further damage. She turned to Victor. Would you be willing to stay a bit longer? Your knowledge of what to look for would be invaluable. Victor hesitated, thinking of Sophia waiting at the neighbor's apartment. I need to call my daughter first and make arrangements. Of course, Diana agreed. Use my office. Rebecca can order dinner for everyone. It's going to be a long night. As James and Marcus stepped out to begin implementing containment measures, Victor made his call. Mrs. Henderson agreed to keep Sophia overnight, assuring him that the little girl was already half asleep after cookies and cartoons. When he emerged from Diana's office, he found her standing by the window, gazing out at the city lights. The blue diamond on her finger caught the reflection of the skyline, scattering tiny points of light. "Is your daughter settled?" she asked without turning. "Yes, thank you." Diana nodded, still looking out at the city. "My grandfather used to say that a company is only as strong as its weakest ethical link. I thought I was maintaining his legacy by growing Ellington Enterprises, by making it more profitable, more competitive." She turned to face Victor. "But I've been neglecting the most important part of that legacy, integrity. It's easy to lose sight of fundamentals when you're focused on growth," Victor offered. Perhaps I simply stopped looking closely enough." She studied him thoughtfully. "Or you saw what others missed, or chose to ignore, because you weren't blinded by position or profit." "I saw it, because I've been on the receiving end of cut corners," Victor said quietly. "When you're cleaning up the consequences of others, shortcuts, you develop a different perspective." Diana's expression softened slightly. "Well, that perspective has saved this company from potential disaster and quite possibly saved lives." She straightened, her business demeanor returning. "Now, let's get to work. We have a division to salvage and a hospital project to fix." As they walked together toward the mechanical systems division, Victor realized how dramatically his life had changed in just a few days. From invisible janitor to key player in a corporate crisis, all because he'd done what he considered the only right thing, returning a lost diamond to its rightful owner. The irony wasn't lost on him that Harold Jenkins, who had mocked his integrity, had been undone by his own lack of it. The next 3 weeks passed in a whirlwind of activity. Victor found himself at the center of Ellington Enterprises' most urgent crisis, working 16-hour days to help salvage the Atlanta Hospital project and stabilize the Mechanical Systems Division. The night of Harold's termination had stretched until dawn, with Victor, Diana, and a team of trusted engineers conducting a thorough audit of the division's projects. They had discovered that while Atlanta was the most egregious case, it wasn't the only compromised project. 5 other major installations had similar safety issues, though none were as immediately dangerous as the hospital system. By morning, Diana had made a series of difficult but necessary decisions. She postponed the Atlanta delivery, notifying the client of the safety concerns and committing to a complete redesign at Ellington's expense. She appointed Mei Lin as interim division head, recognizing the young engineer's competence and integrity, and she authorized an external audit of all the division's projects from the past 3 years. The fallout was significant. The company's stock dipped when news of the delayed projects and internal investigation broke. Business journals ran stories speculating about quality control problems at the once unimpeachable Ellington Enterprises. Competitors circled like sharks, trying to poach concerned clients. Through it all, Victor worked tirelessly, drawing on his engineering background and practical experience to identify problems and propose solutions. He assembled a team of the division's most talented and trustworthy engineers, including Devi, Zoe, and Patrick, to redesign the Atlanta system from scratch. Sophia had adapted to the upheaval with remarkable resilience. They had moved into the Madison Heights apartment as planned, and the little girl had blossomed in her new environment. She had her own room with stars on the ceiling, just as she'd dreamed, and had quickly made friends with other children in the building. Mrs. Henderson visited occasionally, delighted by their improved circumstances, but missing her young friend. On the Thursday of the 3rd week, Victor returned home late to find Sophia already asleep, a new drawing on her bedside table. It showed a stick-figure family: Sophia, Victor, and several other figures he recognized as May, Dev, and their new neighbors. In the corner was a woman in a blue dress with what appeared to be a sparkly ring on her finger, Diana Ellington, whom Sophia had met briefly during a weekend when Victor had to stop by the office. Victor smiled at the drawing, then checked his phone. A message from Diana requested his presence in her office first thing tomorrow morning. The Atlanta redesign was complete. The external audit was wrapping up, and the crisis was finally stabilizing. Perhaps things would soon return to a more normal rhythm. Friday morning found Victor in Diana's office, the blue diamond on her finger catching the early sunlight as she reviewed the final report on the Atlanta project. "The redesign is excellent," she said, setting down the tablet. "Safety redundancies at every critical juncture, power backup systems exceeding industry standards, and still within the original budget. How did you manage that?" Victor shrugged modestly. We eliminated the unnecessary complexity in the original design, features that were more about impressing engineers than serving patients. It freed up resources for the safety systems that really matter." Diana nodded appreciatively. "The client is impressed as well. Despite the delay, they're calling this the most transparent and responsive vendor relationship they've ever experienced. May deserves most of the credit," Victor noted. "She's a natural leader." "Yes, she is." Diana leaned back in her chair, "which brings me to the purpose of this meeting. The external audit is complete, and the board is satisfied that the issues were isolated to Harold's network, all of whom have been removed from the company." She slid a folder across the desk to Victor. "This is an offer for you to become the permanent director of special projects, reporting directly to me. You would oversee high-priority initiatives across divisions, focusing on both innovation and integrity. The position comes with a significant salary increase, stock options, and a seat on the executive committee." Victor opened the folder, scanning the details. The compensation was generous, far more than he had ever imagined earning. The responsibilities were substantial, but aligned perfectly with his skills and values. It was, by any objective measure, a dream opportunity. Yet he hesitated. "Something's troubling you," Diana observed, her perceptiveness unchanged by the weeks of crisis. Victor closed the folder carefully. "This position would require frequent travel, long hours and high stress. I've been living that reality for the past 3 weeks, and while it's been rewarding professionally, it's taken a toll personally," Diana finished for him. "Sophia," Victor nodded. "She's been incredibly understanding, but I promised myself after Maria died that I would never let work consume me to the point that I missed watching my daughter grow up. These past weeks have been necessary, but as a permanent arrangement." "You're turning down the position," Diana stated, no judgment in her voice. "I'm suggesting an alternative," Victor countered. "I've been speaking with May about establishing a new quality assurance department within the mechanical division. Smaller scope, more regular hours, still making a meaningful difference, but allowing me to be home for dinner with Sophia most nights, to attend her school events, to help with homework." Diana considered this, twisting the blue diamond ring thoughtfully. "A new department would require board approval, budget allocation, organizational restructuring, all of which you have the authority to initiate," Victor pointed out. "The crisis has demonstrated the need for systematic quality oversight. It would serve the company well, not just my personal circumstances." Diana stood and walked to the window, gazing out at the city as she had that first day when Victor returned her ring. "When my grandfather built this company, he insisted that no employee should have to choose between being good at their job and being good at their life. Somewhere along the way, we lost sight of that principle." She turned back to face him. "Submit a formal proposal for the Quality Assurance Department by Monday. Include staffing requirements, budget projections, organizational structure. If it's as thoughtful as everything else you've done, I'll take it to the board next week." Victor smiled, relief washing over him. "Thank you, Ms. Ellington." "Diana," she corrected, returning to her desk. "After what we've been through these past weeks, I think we've moved beyond formalities." "Diana," Victor acknowledged with a nod. As he gathered his papers to leave, Diana spoke again. "There's one more matter to discuss. The company has established a scholarship fund in your name, the Victor Reyes Integrity Scholarship. It will provide full university funding for children of Ellington Enterprises employees, with preference given to maintenance and service staff families." Victor stared at her, momentarily speechless. That's incredibly generous, but I don't need recognition for simply doing what was right." "It's not about recognition," Diana explained. It's about changing the culture, about reminding everyone in this company that integrity isn't just a word in our mission statement. It's a value we reward and cultivate. She smiled slightly. Besides, the first recipient has already been selected. A certain young lady with an interest in astronomy will have her education fully funded through graduate school, should she choose to pursue it. Victor's throat tightened with emotion. Sophia is only 9. The funds will be held in trust, Diana assured him. Consider it my personal thanks, not for returning my grandmother's ring, but for reminding me what this company was meant to stand for. The following Monday, Victor submitted his proposal for the new Quality Assurance and Integrity Department. By Friday, the board had approved it unanimously, with Diana's strong endorsement. Victor was named department head, with May, Dev, Zoe, and Patrick forming the core team. Their first assignment was implementing new safety protocols across all divisions, establishing processes that would make it impossible for someone like Harold Jenkins to compromise quality for profit again. The work was challenging but deeply satisfying, and true to Diana's promise, it allowed Victor to maintain regular hours and be present for Sophia's daily life. 1 month after the new department was established, Diana invited Victor and Sophia to dinner at her home, a stunning penthouse overlooking the harbor. Sophia was initially shy in the imposing space, but quickly warmed up when Diana showed her a powerful telescope on the balcony. "Can we really see Jupiter?" Sophia asked, her eyes wide with wonder as Diana helped her adjust the eyepiece. "Jupiter and its moons," Diana confirmed. "Now, my grandfather taught me the constellations from this very spot when I was about your age." While Sophia explored the night sky, Victor and Diana shared a quiet moment inside. "The Atlanta system passed its final inspection today," Victor reported. "The client has already recommended us to 2 other hospitals, considering renovations." Diana nodded, pleased. "Now, and the other compromise projects, all redesigned, all passing safety tests with flying colors. May's leadership in the mechanical division has been transformative, as has yours in quality assurance," Diana added. She hesitated, then continued in a more personal tone. "You know, when you first returned my ring, I thought I was offering you an opportunity. I didn't realize you were offering me one as well. The chance to rediscover what really matters in business and in life." From the balcony, Sophia's excited voice called out, "Dad, Diana, I found it. I found Jupiter." They joined her at the telescope, taking turns looking at the brilliant planet and its orbiting moons, ancient light traveling across vast distances to reach them. As they stood together under the stars, Victor reflected on the extraordinary journey that had brought them here. From a custodial closet to an executive position, from struggling single father to respected department head, all because he had done what his parents had taught him was simply right, returning something valuable to its rightful owner. The blue diamond on Diana's finger caught the starlight as she helped Sophia locate Saturn next. The ring that had once represented only family history to Diana now held additional meaning, a reminder that value isn't always where or what you expect it to be, and that sometimes the most precious assets are the ones that can't be measured in carats or dollars. For Victor, the greatest reward wasn't the job or the apartment or even the scholarship in his name. It was the knowledge that he had stayed true to his principles when tested, and in doing so had shown his daughter that integrity wasn't just a word, but a way of life that could transform not just their future, but the futures of many others as well. 1 year later, Victor stood at the podium in Ellington Tower's Grand Conference Hall, addressing the company's annual leadership summit. Behind him, a presentation slide displayed the impressive results of the Quality Assurance and Integrity Department's first year. Customer satisfaction up 23%, safety incidents down 68%, employee retention improved by 17%, and most importantly, 0 compromised projects reaching implementation. Integrity isn't just a moral choice, Victor concluded, his voice confident in a way that still sometimes surprised him. It's a business advantage. When we prioritize doing the right thing over doing the easy thing, we build trust with our clients, with the public, and with each other. That trust is our most valuable asset. As applause filled the room, Victor caught Diana's eye from her seat in the front row. She nodded slightly, the blue diamond on her finger catching the light as she joined the ovation. Beside her sat the board members who had initially questioned the wisdom of creating Victor's department, but were now among its strongest advocates. After the presentation, Diana approached him. "The Atlanta hospital director called this morning," she said. "Their system has been running flawlessly for 6 months. He said it's the first time in his career that an HVAC installation has required 0 emergency service call." Victor smiled. May's team did exceptional work on the redesign. "You all did," Diana corrected, "and the hospital board noticed they've approved the expansion project and specifically requested Ellington to handle all mechanical systems." She handed him a folder. "The contract was signed this morning. It's the largest single project in the company's history." Victor accepted the folder, knowing what it represented beyond the dollar value. It was vindication of everything they had worked for, proof that integrity and quality could rebuild trust, even after a significant breach. "There's something else," Diana continued, walking with him toward the refreshment area. "The board has unanimously approved the expansion of your department's mandate. Starting next quarter, quality assurance and integrity will have oversight authority across all divisions, not just mechanical systems." Victor stopped walking. "That's a significant expansion of responsibility." "It is," Diana agreed, "and it comes with appropriate resources, increased budget, additional staff, and a promotion to executive vice president for you." A year ago, such an offer would have sent Victor's mind racing with concerns about work-life balance and being there for Sophia. Now, he had the confidence to ask the necessary questions. What would the time commitment look like? "Sophia has her science fair coming up, and I promised to help with her Jupiter atmosphere model." Diana smiled. "I thought you might ask that. The promotion includes the option of a flexible schedule and the authority to build your team as needed. Your work this past year has proven you don't need to sacrifice family for effectiveness." Later that evening, Victor and Sophia sat at their dining table in the Madison Heights apartment, which now felt truly like home. Sophia was carefully painting swirls of red and orange on a styrofoam ball representing Jupiter, while Victor prepared their dinner. "How was your presentation, Dad?" Sophia asked, carefully adding another streak of color. "Oh, it went well," Victor replied, stirring the chicken soup his mother had taught him to make. "People seem to appreciate our department's work." "Did Miss Diana wear her special ring?" Victor smiled at his daughter's observation. "She did." Sophia nodded sagely, as if this confirmed something important. "Miss Chen says that's how science works. One discovery leads to another, even if they don't seem connected at first." "What do you mean, Mija?" Sophia looked up from her project. "Well, if you hadn't found Miss Diana's ring, you wouldn't have gotten your new job. And if you didn't have your new job, you wouldn't have fixed the problems in the building systems. And if you hadn't fixed those, people might have gotten hurt in that hospital." She returned to her painting. "It's like a chain reaction in chemistry." Victor paused, struck by the simple wisdom in his daughter's observation. She was right. That single moment of integrity, returning the diamond ring when no one was watching, had triggered a sequence of events that potentially saved lives and certainly changed many for the better, including their own. The following Sunday, Diana surprised them by accepting Victor's casual invitation to join them for brunch at their favorite neighborhood cafe. It was the first purely social outing they'd shared outside of company functions, and Victor noticed how Diana seemed to relax in the informal setting, listening attentively as Sophia explained her science fair project. "Jupiter's atmosphere has these bands of different gases," Sophia explained excitedly. "In there and storms bigger than Earth. The great red spot has been going for hundreds of years." "It sounds fascinating," Diana said. "I'd love to see it when it's finished." "You could come to the science fair," Sophia suggested hopefully. "Dad says it's important to have supporters in the audience." Diana glanced at Victor, a question in her eyes. He nodded slightly, indicating the invitation was genuine. "And I'd be honored," Diana replied, touching the blue diamond ring reflexively, a habit Victor had come to recognize as her response to moments of unexpected emotion. As they walked back to Madison Heights afterward, Sophia skipped ahead, chasing pigeons and collecting interesting leaves. She's remarkable, Diana observed. So perceptive, so curious about the world. She gets that from her mother, Victor said. Maria was a biologist, always asking questions, always looking beneath the surface. Diana was quiet for a moment. You don't speak of her often. It was difficult at first, Victor admitted. But lately, I find comfort in the memories, in seeing parts of her live on in Sophia. Loss reshapes us, Diana said softly. After my grandfather died, I channeled everything into making the company bigger, more profitable, as if success could fill the void he left. I lost sight of what really mattered to him, not the money or the status, but building something that helped people and operated with integrity. Victor understood then why the blue diamond meant so much to her. It wasn't just a family heirloom or a symbol of wealth. It was a tangible connection to the grandfather who had shaped her values, a reminder of principles temporarily forgotten, but now reclaimed. Your grandfather would be proud of the changes you've made this past year, he said. Diana looked at him directly. He would have liked you, Victor. He believed character revealed itself in unguarded moments when no one important was watching. She smiled. He would say, I got very lucky when you found my ring. I think we both got lucky, Victor replied. The moment lingered between them, waited with unspoken possibilities. Then Sophia called from ahead, excited about a particularly interesting leaf she'd discovered, and the spell was broken. Back at the apartment, as Diana prepared to leave, she paused at the door. There's an opening on the Ellington Foundation board. It oversees our charitable initiatives, including the scholarship program named after you. Would you consider joining? The time commitment is minimal. Quarterly meetings, some occasional reviews. I'd be honored, Victor said, recognizing the offer for what it was. Another door opening, another opportunity to create positive change. After Diana left, Victor helped Sophia arrange her leaf collection in a scrapbook. His phone buzzed with a text message from May, sharing news that their redesigned systems for a senior living facility had just passed final inspection with perfect scores. Another success for our team, he murmured, showing Sophia the message. Are you happy, Dad? Sophia asked suddenly, looking up from her leaves. With your new job and everything? Victor considered the question thoughtfully. A year ago, he had been mopping floors at night, stretching every dollar, worried about Sophia's future. Now he led a department that was making a meaningful difference, lived in a comfortable home in a safe neighborhood, and could provide his daughter with opportunities he'd once only dreamed of. But the true measure of his happiness wasn't in the title or the salary. It was in the knowledge that he had stayed true to his principles when tested and had shown Sophia by example that integrity wasn't just an abstract concept, but a way of living that shaped the world around you. Yes, Mija, he answered honestly. I'm very happy. That night, after tucking Sophia into bed beneath her ceiling of glow-in-the-dark stars, Victor stood on their small balcony and looked out at the city lights. Somewhere across town, in a penthouse overlooking the harbor, Diana Ellington was perhaps standing on her own balcony, the blue diamond on her finger, a reminder of how a simple act of honesty had rippled outward, transforming not just two lives, but an entire company. The city hummed below, countless lives intersecting in ways both meaningful and mundane. Victor thought about all the invisible workers, the cleaners, maintenance staff, security guards, whose integrity kept the world functioning smoothly, often without recognition or reward. His phone buzzed with another message, this one from Diana. Board unanimously approved your foundation appointment. Welcome aboard. The first meeting is next month, and yes, it's scheduled to end well before Sophia's science fair. Victor smiled. The diamond ring had been worth millions, but its true value had proven to be something no jeweler could appraise. The catalyst for a transformation that reminded everyone involved that the most precious things in life couldn't be measured in carats or dollars, but in the choices we make when we think no one is watching. In returning the ring, Victor hadn't just found a new job or secured a better future for Sophia. He had helped restore the soul of a company and reminded its leader of forgotten principle. He had proven that integrity, far from being a luxury for the privileged, was a power available to anyone willing to choose right over easy. As he turned to go inside, Victor caught a glimpse of Jupiter rising above the city skyline, a bright point of light in the darkening sky. Sophia would be excited to see it tomorrow night. For now, he left it shining silently overhead, a distant witness to the remarkable changes that had unfolded in their lives over the past year, all because of a simple choice made with integrity.